Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. We are discussing the subject of ganache ratios, and if you're a baker or cake decorator, the subject of ganache may not be new to you. But if you're struggling to understand why your ganache is yielding you some not so great results, it might be down to the relationship between your chocolate and cream. So in this video, we are taking the subject of ganache ratios apart, and by the end of this tutorial, you'll understand what ganache ratios are, the various kinds, and how they affect yield and use in the cake decorating process. You can then make a choice with this information about your exact ganache ratio and the purpose of which you're deriving it. This video is a highlighted summary of an hours-long session talking all things ganache ratios, which I encourage you to watch. But with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the subject of ganache ratios and what they are. Before we continue, here's a simple story to consider on the subject of ganache. Once upon a time, a baker cake artist wanted something more stable for covering their cakes, which would yield steadier than the buttercream they were used to. Their use of buttercream yielded some good results until the sun came up, when everything melted and became unstable. When they researched for other options of buttercream, each came up with its own issues, making it impossible as a choice and even worse, non-guaranteed stability. Disappointed and unsure, they hoped for a miracle frosting that was easy to make and use and would guarantee stability and find results in their cake decorating process. They said a quiet prayer, after which a fairy appeared in their kitchen with 4 bowls, namely ganache for cakes. Each bowl was individually labeled as such: soft, medium firm, firm, and strongly firm. Intrigued and unsure about what the bowls were, the baker decided to try each on their cake. The soft bowl really ran. Soft was on the liquid side and was runny. It seemed to flow without any hold on the cake. The medium firm had some hold and was firmer than the first, but hardly could hold on when the sun came out. The firm held shape, covered well on the cake, and went beyond the former. And even better, stayed put for a couple of hours when the sun came out. The baker, excited about the prospects of their dreams coming true, tried the final bowl labeled strongly firm. This yielded amazing results in terms of stability and hold, but they found it slightly difficult to use in the cake decorating process as the ganache began to set hard and almost hence solid during the process. With this experience, the baker knew if they wanted a choice of ganache to withstand the heat of the sun, this would be perhaps firm and strongly firm. They also knew, though, for their best result for using strongly firm, they needed to practice to refine their skills to help get great results when using ganache. From the above story are the ganache consistencies derived through the various ratios of 1:1, 2:1, 3:1, or 4:1. But what exactly is ganache ratio? Ganache ratio is a simple term used to describe the proportion of chocolate to cream, or simply the amount of chocolate to the amount of cream added. And this varies depending on the different decorating functions of each chocolate ratio and one's own decorating objectives. Ganache ratios are not just limited to 1:1, 2:1, 3:1, or 4:1, but these are the commonly recommended ratios for ease of understanding. And for clarity of this tutorial, we are focusing on simple white chocolate ganache for covering cakes, since there are various types of ganache available, and I've already created tutorials on how to make my own simple white chocolate ganache 2 ways, and how to get your ganache optimized 24 hours after it has been made for covering your cake for best results. These are all organized in a playlist format to help you follow on from each. Now let's get on to the individual ganache ratios, and for that we're starting with the 1:1 ratio, which is 1 part of chocolate to the same part of cream in white. I have myself 100 grams of chocolate, and added to that is 100 mils of cream, pinch of salt, and an equivalent amount of corn syrup, all warmed up in a microwave and stirred together. Consistency appears runny, thin, and almost pourable, and when left to cool slightly, this can be great for drips, sauces, or used as a glaze on cakes. When left to set for 24 hours, the runny consistency has completely thickened and can be whipped to be filled into cakes. Though the consistency has now set, it is still unsuitable for covering onto cakes to support any form of stability. Worth noting, in our ganache story, the soft consistency represented the 1:1 ratio, which wasn't fit to guarantee the form of stable ganache our baker was looking to achieve. Next is the 2:1 ratio, which is 2 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream. So I have myself 200 grams of the same chocolate type I had before, and to that, I'm adding 100 ml of cream. There's some salt and corn syrup. These are all heated in the microwave and stirred together, and similar to the 1-to-1 ratio, this appears smooth, soft and runny. But while stirring into it, I can feel the motion is slightly firmer and more resistant than the 1-to-1 ratio. Functions of the 2-to-1 ratio of ganache include filling into cakes and can be used for covering onto cakes as well. Left to set for 24 hours, the ganache has thickened and can be shaped into a ball with form. While it cannot guarantee stability in the rising heat on sunny days, the 2-to-1 ratio is usually used by professionals for covering onto cakes ready for a layer of fondant. In our ganache story though, the 2-to-1 ratio was shown as the medium firm consistency, which is firm enough for covering onto cakes but couldn't guarantee stability or keep form on a warm weather day. Before we continue, let's make a quick detour, and I did some research to understand the origins of ganache and how the ratios of ganache came to being. I found the story of how ganache originated as part of culinary history is slightly inconsistent. However, it is accepted ganache has its roots from France, and the ratios are simply an evolution of tested improvements of the science of mixing emulsions, which is simply a mixture of fats and water held together by an emulsifier, which I simply call a peacemaker. This is discussed in detail in the live class, The Science of Ganache, which is linked in the description box. Now we're talking the ganache ratio of 3-to-1, which is the most popularly recommended ratio of white chocolate to cream. This guarantees structure, firmness and stability for covering cakes. I have 300 grams of chocolate, and to that 100 ml of cream is added. Additional ingredients such as salt and corn syrup is added. This is warmed up in the microwave and stirred together. It comes out smooth, silky, but compared to the other two consistencies, this is slightly heavier. Unlike the 2-to-1 ratio, which performs similar functions like the 3-to-1, the 3-to-1 remains steadier, firmer, and can withstand the rising heat for a little while. The 3-to-1 ratio of white chocolate to ganache is my most recommended ratio for beginners, which I have already covered in detail in previous videos that are also available on the ganache playlist. When this ganache is left to set for 24 hours, it returns firm and can hold shape properly into a ball. In our ganache story though, the 3-to-1 is the firm consistency, which admittedly yielded some better result with our baker compared to the 2-to-1 and 1-to-1. Whilst at it, it's worth noting the temperature at which ganache is derived is as important as the ganache result itself. Hence, the microwave settings and the timings for each ganache derived is noted on screen. This may differ slightly depending on your microwave settings. This is in no particular order, and whilst this serves as a guide, it is generally recommended ganache is heated at reasonable time intervals of about 30 seconds to a minute each time, depending on quantity, as overheating the ganache will lead to ganache fails and adverse results in texture and consistency. Onto the subject of ganache ratio of 4-to-1. I have 400 grams of chocolate, into which I add 100 ml of cream, and like the other ratios before, I also add some corn syrup and salt. The bowl with the content is placed into a microwave for about 30 seconds and returns partly melted chocolate, which is then stirred and returned into the microwave for further heating. This time the chocolate is all melted. While stirring, the mixture is thick and viscous, with some difficulty having to get through it easily. In the cake decorating process, the 4-to-1 ratio guarantees strength, structure, and can withstand warm weather conditions better than all three of the previously discussed ganache ratios. It can also be used for molding, sculpted work, and structural chocolate art. When the ganache is left to set for 24 hours, it sets the firmest and the hardest to ply and almost impossible to stir through. It needs warming up before use. With all the advantages in favor of this ganache ratio, it is also the most problematic in terms of use, because its firmness may cause texture in the cake decorating process when used without the knowledge of solving some of its inherent problems. Due to the high amount of chocolate to cream, this causes an imbalance in the emulsion, and the 4-to-1 ratio then becomes highly prone to ganache not mixing uniformly, and it's almost not always smooth or silky as the ones discussed before. In our ganache story, the 4-to-1 is known to have yielded some good results with our baker, yet came with some difficulty. The baker then considered that they needed some time to practice before using this type of ganache. They'd rather preferred the 3-to-1. With the simple breakdown of these generalized ganache ratios. I hope you found some value and learned something new about the subject of ganache and ganache ratios. If so, please register your thoughts in the comment section and ask away your ganache questions, which I'll be sure to answer in my next videos coming up. The videos on screen show you how to make ganache my way, with a playlist on the subject to help you get the best result from making and using ganache. I'll see you on the next one.